Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to Firing Range, a podcast to talk about all things Destiny, weapons, abilities, loadouts, and the sandbox at large. And tonight, we're here to finally settle a long-standing legal battle between who has the official rights to call themselves whatever cakes on YouTube and or Twitch. PattyCakes, please present your case.
Well, I do like pancakes quite a bit, so I feel like there's a little bit of favoritism there, maybe for the pancake fans in the audience. No,
I'm a
I
pancake
like
guy,
anyone with the name Cakes is a good person in my book, so I'm fine with dual custody personally.
If you see Cakes in the Crucible, it's just an automatic rivalry in your match. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's happened to you.
Oh, the best is like people DM me literally every day saying, "Oh, I played your rival today," or some other PattyCakes impersonator out there. Pretty funny.
They're like, Cam, is that your alt? I'm like, just send me the name. What is it? It's like Evil Cakes or something. Like, oh, okay. Has a mustache.
Reminds me of back in the day when our good friend Ninja with no L, who has moved on to being hired by Bungie, would get people coming into his chat and being like, "Hey, wait a minute. You're not Ninja. You're a fake." Everyone, please welcome special guest to the show tonight, PattyCakes. Hey, woo. Thank you very much for being here, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for having me. It's exciting. I love the show. I tune in pretty much every time. So excited to be on this side of the thing for once. That's cool.
Of course. Dude, you got a really psychedelic vibe going on in your background with the PC back there. It's kind of sick.
I just built that thing in December and it's awesome. It's a lot of fun. Very good for gaming and content creation. So
that's pretty badass.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show. Again, if you are at home and following along with the history of our show, we had to fire Mercules for having too many hot takes about bows. We were not sad to see him go because he's a terrible person, and we don't wish him well to whatever career he moved on to. And in the meantime, we've been filling in with random special guests. Last time we had Ascendant Nomad, and now we have the very charming PattyCakes. I'm kidding, by the way, about Merc. He got hired by Bungie, and we love him. And Cool Guy's not here tonight, but that's totally fine. We got plenty of content to go around. But again, Patty, thank you for joining us. Before we get going, just pre-plug, where can the people find you at home?
So on YouTube, PattyCakes Gaming. Twitch is PattyCakes. Those are probably the main two. Like Twitter is PattyCakes GG. So
cool. There you go. Cammy and Drew, how have you boys been since the last time we talked? Drew's just
he's stunned.
I was really sick, so I mean, like, I'm not sick anymore.
Yeah, glad you're feeling better, buddy.
Yeah, that was terrible.
God.
And I was really sick, like in PvP. But no, not really. This meta is
I mean, like, technically true, but yeah. Not really, but actually though. Anyway, well, it's good to have both of you here tonight. So why don't we talk about trials real quick, because I put out the weekly tweet or bi-weekly whatever about, hey, what do you want us to talk about on the show? And a handful of people, including viewers at home, namely B Sheezy, not Bill B's Hat, and other people on Twitter, actually like pretty much a dozen people, wanted us to talk about the recent trials bug and or feature, and whether or not maybe it should be a permanent thing. For those of you who don't know at home, there was kind of a situation going on trials this weekend, who I think Drew told me about it when I was streaming live. Weren't you just... who did you hear it from, Drew? Because I think I heard it from you.
My chat told me. I think it was Sevendray, among other people, that told me, like, apparently that there was a thread about it, and I saw the thread, and then I told you about it.
Sure.
And then,
the crazy thing, Drew, is I think we would have came to the same conclusion in the weekend.
Because we've been running.
We were doing confidence cards.
Yeah, we were running confidence cards. Yeah.
We were just always doing them because they were more fun. So we would keep them on occasion when one of us was like, gets disconnected, and we would have noticed. We would have been like, wait, didn't you disconnect? How did you get the drop or something?
What happened?
Yeah.
So if you didn't know at home, this weekend, or this past weekend rather, was you were able to get adept loot without having to go flawless that particular weekend. You still needed one flawless for the season. So if you had gone flawless at the beginning of the season and you just had the ability to buy a confidence card at the tower, you could just go to the tower, buy a confidence card, and play on it repeatedly. And it doesn't matter how many L's you took on the card, as long as you got eventually to 7 wins and just kept playing beyond 7 on the card. Every win that you got had a chance to drop literally lighthouse level loot. So you could get Ascendant Shards. Like, I filled up big time on Ascendant Shards. You can get Shards, you could get an Adept Shira, you could get Enhancement Prisms. It was just kind of like raining loot after 7. And I should have pulled up the tweet. Does anyone, you know what, I'll pull it up. But the Trials player numbers from that weekend were huge. And it was probably a combination of both the fact that that glitch was a thing and also the fact that it was freelance weekend, which is really encouraging for solo players to just leap on in.
Especially the combination of the two.
Exactly. So here's the tweet from the Twitter account @TrialsReport, which if you don't follow them, you probably should. Most average matches per player, 30.8 since the first revamp week, which was 37.4 average matches per player. Freelance was more popular than the regular playlist for the first time ever. It had 22% more matches, more than 2 million matches played for the first time since October. The numbers were just goddamn huge. So with all that in mind, what do you guys think of the glitch? Do you think it was something that should just be a one-time thing? Should it? What do you think?
I'll go if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Kimmy.
Yeah, anyone, sure.
I think the loss penalty should be experimented with being removed. And that doesn't necessarily mean you just give adepts away for nothing. You can just change the start and finish line. So previously it was Mercy card. You can lose one single match, but other than that, 7 wins. And that's your adept loot. Maybe they could change it so that losses don't matter, but you have to get more wins in a weekend than just 7. So pick a number and we'll start there. That's
Losses
where I'm at.
Don't matter, but you have to pick. Oh, but you have to get X number of wins.
Yeah, it could be. Let's pick a big number. It could be 50 games won in a given weekend.
Sure, but but losses don't matter. So as long as you get to that number, then hey, adept loot for you.
Yeah, it could even be card tracked. It's just on this particular card you have 40 wins. When you're on your 50th win, you get the adept of that weekend.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I feel like a while ago, I can't even remember what topic we were discussing. I feel like it doesn't even matter. It actually might have been Trials, but I feel like Drew eventually came to the conclusion where he was just tired of arguing about it. And he was kind of like, you know what? Like, whatever makes the player number the highest is like, I don't care anymore. Like, just whatever is best for the health of the game. Like, just do that. Do you still kind of feel that way, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. If that's what adept weapons do, then sure. I don't think there's... I care about the adept weapons and the difference, but realistically, it's like the difference between an adept and a non-adept. It's like it's really just the 1% of players that really want to, like, min-max. Like, I guess myself, that really care about that. But hey, if that's what gets people into the playlist, sure. The only thing that really solidified for me about this weekend is that it really solidified that I think Trials needs, like, I don't know. I know they were saying that they're going to experiment with some matchmaking at some point, but there needs to be some sort of prioritization for solo queue, clearly. And secondly, it solidifies that Trials, I think the identity of Trials is it's a loot playlist. It's not a competitive one. That's what it sounds like to me. It doesn't sound like people care about it being competitive in the slightest. And it's a loot playlist. It's about the loot. So you know, that's what I noticed. And to tag on to that, I think that, you know, I think Trials as a game mode personally, this is a complete different discussion, but I don't think I think Elimination brings out the worst in the Destiny sandbox, like quite literally the worst of the worst in the sandbox. So yeah, it makes sense that, you know, people don't really play it for competitive enjoyment so much as like majority play for it because loot. It's a loot playlist.
Kind of interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, I mean, I think originally, yeah, the concept of Trials was like, oh yeah, only the best of the best are allowed to roll deep in here. But it's like, yeah, there's still a lot of people who are trying to go flawless for the first time. It's still, I'm not saying it's not a challenging activity because the sandbox can be unforgiving, and especially when combined with Elimination. But yeah, it's just, it's kind of all about loot. Like, most people I know play it because they're trying to get like, oh, do I want to get like my, you know, my God roll messenger or whatever, you know what I mean? It's usually that. So I'm fine with leaning into that identity. Like I just feel like we've talked about before on the show how players will do anything in this game provided the carrot at the end of the stick is shiny enough. Like, do you think that I want to solo dungeons? No, not at all. I don't want to do that at all. But there's a really cool emblem that I get if I do it. And yeah, I kind of want to flaunt that a little bit. So like players will do wild stuff if it means that they get something that they can either use and have fun with or show off, I guess.
Okay, devil's advocate here because you said emblem.
Sure.
I want to be clear that like the tangible things that make a difference in the PvP build should be obtainable by anybody. And then the elite loot should just be cosmetics.
That's
so
another
that would be
thing.
the lighthouse stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that I saw popping up on Twitter. And like the more I think about it, kind of agree.
Yeah,
That's gonna
one
be
of the
my
devil's
question.
advocate things is they say, oh, Trials will lose the prestige, as if it had any to begin with, but let's humor it, right? You can keep the
Sure.
prestige, you just get an emblem. But I think even more so, this screams that we need a competitive playlist, like a real competitive
Yeah.
playlist, with the simple reward being my number's bigger than yours. And that's your prestige.
Patty, do you have something you wanted to say?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you guys because I haven't really played as much Trials this season as previous ones. I just haven't felt very compelled to do so. There's not really any loot that I wanted to chase. I did play a lot this weekend because number one, it was apparently the last time to get Shara's Wrath, which I was like, oh, you know, might want to get the new one with the new perk and stuff, even though I had a good one before. So that's one reason to play, and that got me playing more than usual. I think I played a card with you, Fallout, like a couple weeks ago at some point.
That's right.
I haven't played a whole lot other than that, and I'm trying to figure out why. And I think part of it is that there's no like gear that I care that much about, right? I don't really care that much about the scout rifle, and you know, I have most of the other stuff with pretty good, you know, rolls from before. I feel like there's almost no incentive to play from a like prestige angle. Like I said, I mean, I think that going flawless these days, it's great. Like I'm a huge fan of, you know, helping people get there, and I think it's really cool if it's your first time. But if you're someone who's been playing for a long time, it's like it's not, you know, getting your 100th flawless is not that different than your, you know, second flawless, right? It's just not that big of a deal. I've been a long-term fan of like games like Counter-Strike and Valorant and all these ones that have true ladder systems, and I feel like Trials is a really terrible parallel to that. It's just not even close to any sort of like true competitive system. And I really think that's where competitive, like the old competitive playlist, now is survival. Like I think that that's what that should become. And I think Trials is best is just a social playlist like that, where maybe the reward for the harder stuff, like, you know, having certain numbers of flawlesses, is you get like cosmetics, cool emblems, shaders, armor, ornaments, stuff like that. That would get, I think, the more like hardcore players like some carrot to actually chase. But I don't really think that I feel like they have problems when they make like the not forgotten behind some wall, where like I think that creates a big rift in the community. So I don't I don't really like the idea of necessarily making the better stuff locked further behind, you know, different levels of flaws and stuff. But I do think cosmetically it'd be really cool if there was like really desirable stuff to chase, so you know, people could kind of flaunt that they've, I mean, maybe you get 100 flawlesses and you get like a really cool emblem or something that's super exclusive. I mean, that pushes the PvE community to go for the day one raids and all that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah,
think that they don't push that lever nearly hard enough, in my opinion.
they definitely
Yeah, you're right.
don't. Yeah.
They do day one raid emblems, but I've never seen like a world's first flawless of the weekend an emblem.
And
Yeah.
that's such an untapped opportunity from Bungie. Literally back in the day, when I would play a ton of Modern Warfare 2 lobbies, like I just loved chasing down those wild, were they emblems? Whatever the hell they were. Like the, like you get
Calling card things,
the
yeah.
calling card things in Modern Warfare 2. Like I remember trying so hard to do specific challenges or whatever, but like those are like whether you want to hold it behind some kind of challenge, like, oh, get 20 sniper headshots in a game or something like that, or if you want to make it like win X number of games, or I don't know, something like a Halo ranking system, which I know we've talked about like 100 times, but there are so many cosmetic things or just interesting incentives that you can have people really eagerly chase that just doesn't have to be limited to loot. Everybody loves to chase loot, of course. Destiny's a looter shooter, but I also kind of agree the more that I think about it, that it's like, well, I don't want to say that we shouldn't have difficult to obtain loot or difficult to obtain items or something like that. I still want the challenge factor to be there. So I just had read on Twitter a bunch of people like, oh great, so like now people get adept shires and they didn't really deserve it. It's like, that's kind of weird gate. Like who really cares about that? Like I don't understand the gatekeeping element there. And like, isn't the sandbox isn't a win in PvP more satisfying to you knowing that everyone in the lobby has access to all the same loot, but you just played better than they did? Like rather than like, oh, I beat them because I have a, like, rewind the clock, I have a not
play
forgotten
the game more.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I grinded, I know lifed it more, and like, like I don't know. I just think there's opportunities for all sides here to come out on top, have more incentive stuff to chase, have a lot of it lean into the cosmetic stuff because people love that crap. I love that crap. Like still have it be challenging to get,
Yeah. Imagine Counter-Strike where you get the like souped up AK-47 because you played like the previous season and like you're defending the highest rank, but the person can't, like they're yours shoots like 10% RPM faster or something. It just, I don't know. To me, like that's the complete opposite of like a truly competitive system. And it's like if your ego is built around trying to like be this competitive god, then you'd want everyone to have an equal chance of beating you. Otherwise,
right?
What's the point?
And to the person with that take on Twitter, if you don't have the OG Unbroken, that goes away if you get what you want. It gets redacted.
I was going to mention that I liked what Patty said about like just letting it be that social kind of playlist, because again, to me this was like the best experiment possible. I think with the success of it, it very much solidifies that Trials to the majority of people is a loot playlist. It's not like we've talked about it having this identity crisis in the past of not knowing, is it competitive, is it loot?
Yeah, right.
Like, and we're just like, it's just like, huh? But like, I think this really solidifies based on the community's engagement. And I think a lot of the reception that I've seen that Trials is to the players, or the majority of them, a loot playlist. It's somewhere where you go to get high-end, mainly, I say mainly, PvP loot, or just the specific loot that comes from there. And I'm down, like, just let it be that playlist.
Sure.
Let it be that social setting. And the way I've always thought about Iron Banner, at least, is like, I feel like Iron Banner is like a great, as an event, is kind of like that great entry point into like PvP.
Sure.
And I feel like Trials, if it were to be just, fully embraced as this, loot playlist, I'll say, or social playlist per se, that's like an entry point into like organized PvP. Like,
sure.
You have like Iron Banner, which is like 6v6, a bit more chaotic, kind of just like a really basic entry point. And then Trials would just serve as like this one's going to be a little less chaotic, a little bit more organized, a little bit more on the line in terms of in the game, and get like again, that first step into more organized PvP.
Sure.
And
sure.
obviously this would, you know, the logical blank space we're all thinking of here is you, like Kim said, hopefully would have a competitive playlist that you're there because you want to enjoy the competition.
That would be awesome. Yeah. That
That's where I would say it.
What's so backwards about it right now is that the competitive playlist is the loot playlist to level up and then serves no purpose afterwards.
Yep.
No, not even. It's for a lot of players, the competitive playlist is the chill playlist because that's where the SBMM is, not to segue us to that. But if you are having a terrible time in regular control, just go to survival. It's going to be a lot better.
And to clarify, I think a lot of us are on the same page. Like when we say competitive playlist, it means like truly like a real competitive playlist.
You win, number goes up. You
survival.
lose, number goes down.
Yeah,
That's what we
but
mean by that.
beyond that, game modes like real objective game modes, or like game modes that isn't. I'm sorry, like maybe this is just my opinion. I don't know how everyone else feels. Like I said earlier, I think Elim truly brings out the worst of the Destiny sandbox in every facet, and we've seen it time and time again. I think it's an awful game mode for the sandbox. As a social thing, I think it's fine, and like, you know, just that entry point type of thing. But like for a true competitive playlist, like real objectives, hopefully more game modes.
I mean, yeah, I totally hear you. It was just really interesting to see all those people, like everybody is talking about it over the weekend. Like I kind of like even my fiance, the lovely Anna, was just like, I look over, I barely see her attempt to play trials outside of a team, but it was like she's just like grinding on the confidence card. You know what I mean? And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm farming shires. And outside the fact that her RNG was horrible, she got a ton of games in, and like it's just good for the playlist as a whole. Like it's just, again, we've talked so many times about how trials kind of needs a better identity. And again, at home, when we say competitive, we're referring to that like that rank, that make number go up type situation. We don't mean to say that like it's not even challenging to go flawless. Like we understand it's challenging to go flawless, and like
it's like if
there's plenty of people out there who haven't done yet, but it's still difficult to do so. But we're talking about like a ranked competitive type playlist activity, which doesn't really currently exist in Destiny 2.
No, if you look at any other competitive game like that, there's like, you know, bronze, golds, and you're like, there's a you know, aspiration to get to the highest rank, and your rank means something because it's like, if you're a platinum player, you're expecting to play against other platinum players, and like there's a quality of the match that's kind of to be expected, and it's like that gives you something to aspire to get better at. Whereas, like, I mean, the difference between someone who's at like 100 glory and 5500 glory is essentially just how much they've played. It's not like an indication necessarily of like, you know, ability, which I think like I would like to see it more, you know, it's like you gain and lose points, but it's like you're playing people within your normal rank, and in the games, you know, the goal is to get, like, not every player in Counter-Strike gets to global, right? That's like the best 1% or whatever of players.
Sure. Yeah. Just like how many times it's valid every time, but like I sunk so much time into Halo 2, Halo 3, PvP just because like I just wanted to make the number go up. Like
You just wanted the 50.
Yep.
I just wanted the 50, bro.
Yeah.
That's all I
Okay,
wanted.
so thoughts for the future is maybe they tie in the traditional flawless to expediting the crafting process of trials weapons if it's going to be craftable.
Oh,
That's my prediction.
interesting.
I like that idea.
Okay.
Cool.
And I said expediting. That doesn't mean other people can't craft it. It just means if you want your red box, you go flawless. Otherwise, like everything else, it's RNG, kind of like the raid, like doing the extra puzzle stuff.
Fair enough. If you have thoughts about what you would like the identity of trials to be, or anything, if you have any thoughts regarding what happened this weekend with the glitch/feature, let us know either in our live Twitch chat. If you're here right now, we do record the show live, or maybe on Twitter at any point in the week. We would be thrilled to hear from you. Boys, do you want to talk about the current meta?
Yeah, Trials was a perfect indication of this because the team version where you go in 3 versus 3 organized team, kind of sucked. Whereas freelance was chaotic and unorganized enough that it wasn't that bad, even though the same stuff was being used. It just wasn't in an organized fashion, aka Renewal Grasp and Lorelei Splendor.
Yes. For anyone here who played a lot of trials this weekend, what was the most common loadout you think you ran into? Because I definitely have my answer, but I would love to hear from all of you.
I feel like almost every team had a renewal grasp. Like every organized team had at least one. There was a lot of Titans with flaming helmets trying to one-shot you with Ariana's vow. That was pretty common as well.
A lot of bubble Titans too.
Yeah, bubble Titans,
bubbles,
Invis Hunters. I'd say those are the top 4, like the things I would see the most often. And the thing about renewal grasp is like one player on that team can completely change the entire flow of the match. You don't need 3 people using it. Just one, effectively buffs their entire team.
Interesting seeing a comment in the Twitch chat from someone I know mentioning that they personally did not see hardly any renewal on PS5. I have to constantly remind myself in the differences in Sandbox, but I would love to hear more about I played on PC all weekend, so I would love to hear more about the console meta if you have something to share. But for the PC and mixed lobby, actually, I guess if it's freelance, you can't mix and match, can you?
No.
Probably not, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for the PC lobbies on freelance this weekend anyway, it was just an insane orgy of renewal grasp hunters and a lot of Lord of Wolves too. I'm seeing a ton of Lord of Wolves, which I originally got the heads up from. I mean, it's always been kind of a fun weapon, but it can deal with enemy renewal hunters a little bit better if you're pretty accurate and just keep tapping them in the dome. But like, yeah, just so many renewal grasp hunters with Lord of Wolves, and then Lorelei Titans with either driver or like a high impact sniper.
Another observation was in freelance, I saw a lot of SMGs and those type of weapons.
Yeah.
But in the organized 3v3 team, it was just hand cannons and long range pulses.
Sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that the meta is in this like super weird, like we're in this bizarre meta where like it's you're using layers on layers on layers of damage resist, mainly renewal.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're using the easiest one-shot kill or super fast TTK possible. So we're at this place where like it's like in a given moment, you're either getting deleted and one-shotted to the body or something by Lorelei or by something like that very easily, or you're faced with like you're doing no damage to someone or they have some sort of resist against you. And it's bizarre. It's like it's so hard to keep track of engagements. It sucks. Absolutely just sucks getting one-shotted. Lorelei and Renewal are no doubt in my mind the best things to be using in the game. I think they're absurdly broken and very, very, very oppressive. Like I was mind blown at those like again, I think I said it a long time ago. Those gauntlets scare me way, way, way more than Lorelei did when we first read about it. I thought that was gonna be the worst one. They're both terrible, but I think those gauntlets are awful. Like they're just so oppressive.
Sure.
I think Invis is still okay. Like sure you get the first shot advantage. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased. I don't think it's incredible anymore. As far as I'm concerned, they've killed it for me.
Ever since they changed it, right?
Yeah, I think it's just dead. To me, there's just no point in it. But I mean, it's still good if you're closing the gap with specials and getting that first shot. Still excellent. And then the bubble titans. I mean, that overshield. Again, I don't think that's as strong, but there would be like the runners up. I guess
it's an extra bullet. I mean, to your case, you have to put in extra primary shots, but specials still kill just as fast.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. It's like you're gonna get one shot by like all these weapons, like to the body or whatever, and then on top, it's such a weird dynamic.
Yeah, you're right. The flow is super strange.
I'm wondering more and more how much the ability team. I mean, of course, we know all the teams at Bungie work very closely together, but like, do their goals between the weapon team and the ability team ever clash? Because I feel like we're in this place right now where I get people coming into my Twitch chat and they're like, I'm thinking about getting back into Destiny. Can you talk to me about PvP? Like, is PvP in a good place? And I'm like, the weapon sandbox to me feels great. Like I love where hand cannons and pulse rifles are, and like shotguns are still really strong, but they used to be way stronger. And there's like some outliers, right? Every now and then. But it's like that's always kind of what it is. That to me, the weapon sandbox right now feels really good. But there's just one or two things over here in the corner making things just like strangely awkward, and it becomes highlighted more and more, like Drew mentioned in the elimination playlist. Like when I go into Iron Banner, I don't often have that much of a trouble with, you know, whatever ability stuff, but it's just in elimination it shines a little bit brighter, that awkward spotlight. So it's just like, yeah, outside of like if Renewal and Loreley just vanished and we had like a repeat of this weekend in Trials, I feel pretty good. I'd feel good about playing it like all weekend. That's just my personal, I don't know if you guys agree, but it
I think weapon balance is, I agree, is like arguably the best it's ever been in the history of Destiny. I think it's overall very good. There are some outliers. I mean, there's certain fusions are a little hot right now. Maybe there's, you know, and there, I mean, even like things like, I still think DMT is like incredibly good. Even
DMT
no
is
matter how much they
fantastic,
nerf it, I still think it's super good. But it's like there's not compared to different times in Destiny, I think it's some of the best balance, at least for the majority of the weapon classes. But then it's this weird thing with abilities where it's like the clashing of an RPG game and an FPS game together, where like, I mean, I don't know if you guys have played much PvP and MMO games, but it is a lot of like damage resist and stunning and all these like different mechanics, and it works well for those kinds of games. I'm still not convinced that it's a good thing for an FPS game for PvP purposes. Like I think in PvE it all works really well, but I don't know that damage resist, overshields, all these different things like have a really strong place in PvP. Like I think they kind of hurt the balance that the weapons team seems to have achieved.
So I don't know. I might have a bit of a different take. I think that and I don't know, call me crazy. I think right now I'm like pretty dissatisfied with the balance of weapons. I think that it's like it's only painfully apparent if you ever try and use something that does not one shot. If you put on Shayura's and Forerunner per se, you'll just see how far behind literally everything in the game you are, because you don't have a weapon that instantly kills someone and instantly does it at like generous ranges. Like slug shotguns, I think are absurd. Fusions of all kind, I also think are absurd. Shotguns are definitely the best tempered. I think, surprisingly, like obviously they've been hit so many times, they're definitely the best tempered. Lord of Wolves is ridiculous. The new Wave GL is like insanity. I think
Dead Messenger is
crazy.
Really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the primary balance is like in a really good place where you know you can. I think my only complaint with primary balance is like hand cannons and not hand cannon range or anything. Personally, it's just the flinch. Like all I care about is the flinch. Like the damage, whatever. I don't care about it. It's just
meaning that they flinch you too hard.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Especially
that's
Ace,
all.
good
like,
God, but
and that could be said around primary flinch. Across the board. So it's just with hand cannons they deal the most damage and flinch scales to damage. But beyond that, like primary weapon balance great. I think that a lot of the problem when I like tried to like sit back and like think about this is that there is, to me at least, the abilities in a vacuum. I do agree some of them should be need to be looked at in terms of like maybe like cooldowns, potency, etc. Definitely not disagreeing there. There's some like I don't know, ones that come to mind would be like the overshield barricade. I think that it's even though it's easier to break, I think it's just up too often still.
Yeah.
Things like I think Axion darts or bolts, whatever they're called, are a little bit of a pain point. Like they're hard to shoot. I don't know. They're very weird.
I was gonna say without the Loreley or Renewal, that's what I would predict the next strategy would be: sit behind a barricade until abilities are up and then dive.
I was going to say, I was actually thinking about you this weekend, Drew, because I've been practicing a lot more on M&K lately, just a lot more.
Yeah.
And I find it's still very difficult to do, but I find it about 10 times easier to shoot and break Axion bolts when they're chasing you when you're on M&K. And then a couple different loadouts, my chat was like, oh, switch to controller for this loadout. And part of it was that I'm a little bit out of controller practice, but like I put in the controller and I was like, holy shit, like these axiom bolts are really hard to shoot on controller. They're super tricky.
Yeah, I mean, beyond that, it's like I like I said, I want to like establish that like I fully agree that some abilities most likely need to be toned down a little bit and hit. But I think that right now in the sandbox, the abilities themselves in a vacuum aren't totally bothersome to me. It's these what I see at least is these Loreley and the gauntlets, right? The whatever they're called, renewal grass. Those aren't I guess abilities, but Dustfield is pretty fine. I think you can say something about the crystal that spawns, maybe. I don't know, but for the DR, but I don't think anyone really had a problem with dust fields until renewal grass, and that leads me to believe that this exotic is truly the problem behind it. And same with Loreley. Like I think these are just like exotics that should like are very 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 unbalanced in my opinion. So and then lastly, I think that the mods are really contributing to the frequency of abilities right now. I think utility kickstart, and I mentioned this a little bit on Twitter.
Unreal.
It's just mind blowing to me that mod works the way that it does. I use my ability that I was going to play the game and use anyways. Now I get a very generous amount back. It costs 1 point with nothing else contesting it in the slot. It's just mind blowing to me. Like I think that mod is very busted.
For
I don't know
it
if so much. Yeah,
like it should cost like so much higher than 1. Like it's just insane. You can double it. Every time I meet one person with utility kickstart, it's like, oh well, you gotta double it, bro. It's like it gives
man, like,
returns, but who cares? It costs 1, and
that's
there's
a no-brainer.
Yeah,
that's a no-brainer. And so, like, while I agree that there is like abilities that need to be adjusted, there's like I think that a bunch of like other moving parts that I really have strong issues with that are like all compounded. I think in a way.
Yeah.
Because I think they're all like adding on to one another. The one shots between different specials with all these damage boosts and all these crazy exotics giving you damage boosts or crazy levels of resist and mods that are making it so accessible it's not funny.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point too. That actually earlier you were talking about the difference of like getting one shot versus the time to kill of your primary taking forever. And I think that all these overshields, damage resist, that just exacerbates the problem, right? Where it's like, if you want to kill a renewal grass hunter, you either headshot them with a sniper rifle or you hit them like all day with your SMG or hand cannon. Or it's just like it's like a 2-second time to kill, 3-second time to kill. I don't know what it becomes, but
if you're in the bubble with them, you can't even headshot with them with the sniper. Did you know that?
Exactly.
It's crazy. Like
very
what?
funny. Yeah, that's like literally obscene that you can't.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous.
To add to that, like this is why I moved to a certain exotic weapon to solve all my problems, and that is Hawkmoon. Any damage I put in is working towards a 1 hit, so it's like a pseudo special weapon. And it's okay. It's like, you want to sit in renewal grass? I'm gonna farm some headshots. Do you want an overshield? More Hawkmoon for me. I actually had someone quit in freelance because I kept dealing with renewal grass to get the revive. Like the enemy would renewal grass the body, revive him, and I'd Hawkmoon the guy, because that was just the natural pace. By the time he got another renewal grasp, I had another one shot of Hawkmoon and the res was up, and that would repeat until the zone cap. And the dude just left the match because he was tired of getting Hawkmoon.
I was having some good fun with Witherhoard. I was especially part of that success being the map, I guess, and the fact that people can't talk to each other. It's like when we had freelance on the moon and Cammy was doing that move where on God damn it, what is that moon map with the doors that everybody hates? Cauldron, yeah. When Cammy was like literally like 50 feet up in the air on the cliffside wall, and like people couldn't talk to each other because it was freelance, but you're just like, you're gargoyling people like Batman. But yeah, Witherhoard is actually working pretty well. A lot of tight corridors and stuff like that, and a lot of people really wanting to stick to the Duskfield bubble. And it's like, all right, I'll just fire a free grenade launcher around in there, and you have fun staying there, buddy. But
weapons that allow you to build up like extra damage like that, like Cammy said, Hawkmoon is really good. No Time, I think, works kind of in the same way with that, where you can build stacks with that.
Where you build your win conditions.
Yeah, exactly. It's like anything that you basically are charging up from them, taking extra damage.
Illumino's in there too. Illumino, I think, would get more use if Loreley didn't exist.
Yeah, without question.
Another thing is the Ozymancy gloves. That's the 2 cold snap glove that give you the enhanced cold snap. That is a really good soft counter to the Renewal grass, because if you do catch them frozen, you could try to snipe them.
It's true. That is true.
What's worse, I mean, like we talked earlier about Elim as a game mode, and I just kind of thought about this, but what's worse about like the cooldown, like between the ability frequency and like the weapons and whatnot, what's worse about trials, and why I think it like really brings out the worst in Destiny, why I say that, in my opinion at least, is because picks are so valuable. Like everyone's gonna stack up whatever you can to get that, like everyone's gonna play cover really tight, but like picks are just so valuable. You pretty much win the round, like when you get that like initial pick, right? And you,
like
and
9
everyone
times
like,
out of 10, yeah.
yeah, you break the stalemate. It's so advantageous. So that really encourages the damage buffs and the special weapon play that's so frequent. And then on top of it, there's so much dead air and stalemates a lot of the time that it feels like you always have your abilities, because you have the space to sit there and just wait for them. Like very rarely there's not a big sense of urgency. So it's just a lot of, I think, like just hide and seek with special weapons, or trying to delete someone, with a team shot if you can catch them, or you got all the space, so you just sit there and wait for your abilities. And when you got them, I mean, it feels like you got them.
The radar tells you where they are.
I mean, when you have them for almost every engagement, because you're in so few like actual engagements that stress you to take action.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, I think it's just, there's so many issues. I think.
Similar reason, Drew, why
so many things.
Why I think snipers rule the roost when it comes to the best players in the world. They're all going to say the sniper is the best weapon, because that's what breaks those stalemates.
Correct. Yep. I always feel so much more comfortable when I'm running on a team. Like someone's like, "Hey, do you mind if I run sniper?" It's like, please, dude, by all means. Like if you get that, if they're really good and you just get that first opening pick, it's like Drew said, the round is pretty much over. Which is why back in the day when I used to do carries, it's like, okay, rule number 1, don't get picked. Rule number 2, don't get picked. Play super careful, because the second anyone goes down, they're just gonna like swarm in, and it's just over immediately. Yeah. So that's been a fun meta to play in. Do you guys predict, what do we think the timeline is? Because I think there was a thread on Twitter this weekend where DMG and also was it Tocom also commenting on the potential future of Loreley, or did you see that thread? No?
Yes.
Just me? Yes? No?
I did.
You did.
Then it's at least on the list of things to change.
I'm sure it's on their list, whether or not it was a Twitter thread. But what do you think make a guess, throw a dart at a dartboard. What do we think the timeline we're looking at here is?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. It's pretty quick.
I feel like that's pretty optimistic.
I mean, okay, hold on. Let's rewind back. Let's rewind time back to doing this podcast when we just simply read the descriptions of that exotic armor. And that we already had red flags. Alarm bells were ringing when we were reading the description.
So you think they were kind of like, maybe we're shipping this too hot. Let's have a backup plan.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
When
I think that's
season
fair.
start. Do you know?
It's like May. If you check the season thing in game, like it'll tell you when it ends. It's like May 23rd or something.
If it happens
like,
before then, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the thing that's like in the patch notes for next season. But I would love if it was sooner. To their credit, they've been a lot faster about patching stuff compared to the last several years. So I'm optimistic.
That is fair.
Yep.
Question for the group: in Bungie's defense, maybe Solar and Arc 3.0 have some sort of counterplay with the current ability-driven meta.
That would be
maybe less stalemates happen because Arc has more radar breaking with the flashbangs and Geminis, and now they can't sit and wait because at some point they lose a radar and you can flank and shoot them in the side again.
That'd be interesting.
Maybe Solar has some anti-stasis kit where the Renewal grass aren't a big deal because Solar 3.0 handles it.
That'd be cool if there was a lot of interactions like that. I feel like part of it is that just from game dev like side of things, it you can't launch Void 3.0 and have it be worse than the old Void, right? Like that's people would be generally very upset if it's like, significantly weaker. And so I feel like each of these subclasses have to kind of come in a little hot, or people are going to be like, "Oh, you stole all my good stuff," right? And so I feel like it's they're in a tough spot because it almost has to come in a little hot, or else people will be disappointed in the rework.
It's a very fine line that they walk, and it's
Mhm.
one that I definitely do not envy. It's why working in game development is repeatedly reported by those who work in it as being stressful. It's like, yeah, because if they bring it in quiet, it's like, we waited for this. What a joke. And if they bring it in too hot, then it's like, wow, thanks for effing up the goddamn sandbox.
Yeah,
But
imagine
I
you can't make
did
your warlock build again, right? Like your top tree down blade, like it's not possible to build that anymore. And so
right. So I found the Twitter thread, by the way. Do you want me to read it? It's very light.
Yeah, go for it.
Dylan says, weekend heads up from the team. This is from April 10th, by the way. The armor team has been monitoring PvP and is investigating tuning changes to the renewal grasps. We expect to have more info later in the season. And then, of course, people reply to that only renewal. So Kevin Giannis retweeted with, the Sandbox team may be quiet as we are, heads down, but we are still committed to the quality of PvP. A lot of moving parts that we understand can be frustrating at times. More changes to come. And I know for a lot of people out there, not me, but I understand that for a lot of people, that when you hear them saying committed to the quality of PvP, you might giggle because we haven't had a new map in a while. Sometimes the PvP changes come very slowly. I get it. But that being said, I still feel like there's good stuff to come, and I do feel like Bungie is, in a lot of departments, really getting their shit together. Like, if you look at all other aspects of the game, PvE is fantastic right now. I do think it's a really slow road for PvP, unfortunately, but I do keep the faith. I feel like my heart will be a little bit broken because didn't they said in the future that they're going to more consistently be working on the state of PvP rather than just kind of like leaving it out in the sun for a while, right? Didn't they mention that? I feel like they did mention that at some point. Yeah.
Wasn't there like a thread or something from? Was it from Joe?
Joe Blackburn?
Yeah, Joe Blackburn. I was like forgetting his last name. I was gonna say Jogaroth, I think is his Twitter.
Yeah, that's his Twitter handle, Jogaroth.
Yeah. Wasn't there a thread a long time ago talking about like a semi-ish kind of timeline?
Yes.
I don't even know. I don't remember when that was, and I don't know where along in that timeline we are now.
I'm so deep.
Right? Like I just kind of thought of it there when you.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Like where along are we now on that?
I don't know where we are. I do think that I think it's right to call out Bungie when they fuck up. So what was that one quote a long time ago that people memed on for a while, like the PvP renewed focus or whatever, and then yeah, see, and that was a long time ago, and I was like, how about that renewed focus? But then I think after that, then yeah, Jogaroth, it was definitely, was it within this year, or was it kind of tail end 2021? Can't remember, but I do definitely remember there being some kind of Twitter thread from Joe where he was like, yeah, we're trying to change the structure of how we work on PvP moving forward. Again, take all this stuff I'm saying with a grain of salt. I don't work for Bungie at all. So, but hopefully, I mean, that tweet about the armor being tweaked and looked at will instill you with some kind of hope. It does for me. And I think that things will only probably improve from this point. But right now, it is a little bit of a headache, I will admit.
I think as well, like, I know we are all kind of on the same page with like this talk about like, oh, wanting a competitive playlist and like current balancing of things in PvP. And I don't know, the way I feel about it, at least, is maybe you guys feel the same. Like, I'm not trying to say these things to like ruin the dynamic of what Destiny is and the identity of Destiny.
Sure.
And I'm not looking for the PvE side of the game to be ruined or the things that are fun in that to be destroyed because of the health of PvP. I think that like when we say competitive, we're not looking for it to be, even though this might sound a little contradictory, we're not looking for the game itself, at least I'm not, to be this, manufactured for tournament competition, esports, whatever. Like, that's not at least what I mean by competitive, but I think that the goal should be, you play PvP and it feels fun in an organized setting. Like I've said this so many times, I feel like now, but I feel like you should end off like wanting more. I think that's the goal. It's like you want to get back in and you want to fix your mistakes and you want to feel or get whatever goal and like get back into it. That's how I felt when I got into FPS games. When with Halo and whatnot, like I constantly felt like I had an identifier of something I could have improved on, and it was fun enough that I just wanted to keep getting back in. And right now, for me at least personally, that's not there. And I'm an enthusiast of PvP and Destiny, so not trying to ruin the other facets of the game or make it this tournament game. Just
Yeah, I agree.
a little
with you.
bit,
I'd like
fun.
to even see more separation between the two parts of the game, like PvP, PvE, because I love in PvE. Like I've had a lot of fun this season creating these cool builds that have all these interesting synergies with elemental wells and all these new things, and it's really fun. But every season and for PvP, I have this like dread of like what's the new annoying meta gonna be that people come up with, and I want to feel excited for like the next season, like, oh, this is gonna be like really cool. But I always have this like gut feeling like, oh god, what are we gonna figure out next that's like busted and have to
It's
deal with for
less
the
of a
next
gut
season.
feeling for me and more of just history repeating itself.
Yeah,
It seems
exactly.
like the problems are ironed out towards the end of the season, and we have like this week or two of like, all right, things feel pretty normal and good. Then the next season, it's another OEM.
Yeah.
So someone in our Twitch chat actually shared the link. Shout out to Caitlin Prime. The Joe Groth thread. It's actually from August of last year, so much further back than I had originally remembered. But it was a long sort of tirade here. I won't read the whole thing, but they let's see. Oh, this is so far back that they're talking about 3-peaking or the changes made to 3-peaking.
Wow.
But
which, by the way, was a giant change in the pace of the match.
Yeah.
So much
it
better.
was huge. Yeah, it was
Imagine 3-peaking with Void 3.0 right
Whoa.
now. Oh,
They,
no.
And
they-
renewal grass.
good. Oh, no, please don't. But he did mention that the ultimate goal is consistency. If you play PvP, the team wants you to understand that you will be getting new maps and modes every year, starting, I'm assuming, with 2022, and that the cadence of those coming out feels predictable. And let's see. Okay. Yeah, they're excited for all the new maps coming. Takes time to build up to this, people.
I don't feel like I
And-
need all that much like from PvP, to be honest. Like I feel like
Yeah.
a couple new maps here and there to like, and I really think even things like map voting would be such a huge quality of life thing, because like there's
Yeah,
actually
let's
a couple.
go.
There's like 4 maps that I really love in Destiny 2, and I feel like in an entire night I might play them once or twice, and then I keep getting
Yeah.
stuck on the maps I don't like. And what are your options? Like you leave the game, and it's kind of not like, a great system. So it's like I just want to be able to queue for the maps that I like, whether that's like a voting system or like you get to pick the pool of like which maps like you're eligible to participate in, or just some way that I can enjoy the parts of PvP I like more, and not have to deal with the parts that I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
From like the
Like-
Counter-Strike perspective, Dust 2. I would just play that all
Exactly,
day
yeah.
if I could in
You
Destiny.
queue into Dust 2, Cache, Mirage, and it's like that's you're fine. Like I don't need to play all the other maps. I can just play the 3 that I like.
And even if that map voting doesn't happen, even though I would also love it,
Mm.
what if in our hypothetic dream competitive playlist, we just had a nice curated selection of maps and modes that were just the best representation for organized play? That would just
Yeah,
like,
the map
how
and the
much it
mode
helps.
is just
No,
as
like, you know what I
important.
mean?
They're not an isolated thing. You just can't give new maps to control playlists and it's going to be good, because they need to
Yeah.
be control maps, not just Destiny maps.
Yeah. So I just
They could also,
glanced through the entire thread while y'all were talking.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm just trying to boil it down to one thought or one sentence, but it's just
If I
kind of
recall,
like,
he was like, we're opening up the faucet to PvP again and we're
essentially,
waiting.
yeah. playing the waiting game right now, but they plan on opening up the faucet more and more. And they really do care about the PvP community. And please bear with us while we work on making changes, which, I mean, yeah, now would be the time. So, but I still do keep the faith.
Do y'all play a lot of endgame PvE as far as like trying to speedrun encounters, lost sectors, GMs, that kind of thing?
Not really. For me.
It's a leading question because I was going to ask if you feel like the current sandbox is a little power crept upward. My PvE Guardian feels so much stronger than it used to be. Like, it's not even close. Void 3.0 is safer and even more offensive, which is a combination to make what I already felt like was not very challenging PvE even more of a cakewalk. And no pun intended, I guess. But yeah, this is where I think Drew was saying, like, he doesn't want the game to be hyper competitive and ruin PvE. But I'm over here thinking, like, well, how could it be ruined if you're toning down some of this power creep, right? Because the encounters are going to be more interesting if they challenge the player. If you just steamroll everything, you might as well watch a movie, watch a cutscene in game.
Yeah. I feel like one simple thing they could do in that regard is to have more incentive for like very high-end PvE. For example, I used to play a lot of Elder Scrolls Online, and every week there was like a competition to be the highest score in the raid, where you get like extra you get extra rewards and stuff like that for having the best score. And there's this leaderboard that we'd place like a really good score, but then, oh, is that score going to stick? Like another team might beat it. And I think that'd be kind of cool if there was like some reason to be really good at the game. Because like you said, it's basically like, are you good enough to beat master raids and, GM Nightfalls and stuff like that? And if you are, like, there's literally no benefit to getting better than that.
Yeah, PSO does that for time attacks, where if you hold a leaderboard position, you get extra, like, let's say, bright dust for each week. And even though it's an easier activity, it matters because now it's player versus player. It's time versus time. And so all the little micro improvements matter, and that keeps it interesting for everyone involved.
Yeah. And you can do that for everything. You can do it for GM Nightfalls. You can do it for raids, like even lost sectors for solo players. Like there's so much opportunity for that kind of thing. And I mean, there's really meaningful rewards. Like what if you got a guaranteed 70 stat that's really spiky exotic for that character that you got the ranking on or something? Like, things that people would actually care about who are endgame players.
Yeah, I like that suggestion.
That would be really, really interesting. And yeah, to answer your question late, I love playing that endgame PvE stuff. PvE, I'm having so much fun in PvE lately. It's just a goddamn blast. But there's always things they could do to improve it even more. Man, we spent a fair amount of time talking about both of those topics. I probably should have done a better job moderating, but burned through about like an hour. Do you guys want to move on to community questions?
Sure. Fire away.
Sweet. Question 1 from Axel on Twitter. Does Dado actually care? PattyCakes, thoughts?
I think he cares about very specific things. I have to say, like, props to Dado for, I've been at this content creation game for like 3 to 4 years now, something like that. And like, he's been at it so long. I'm just like kind of amazed that, he's still making videos and pumping them out, because it's like, that is a long career. Props to him.
It's a long career, man. Yeah. That was some funny shit. I just wanted to throw that your way, Patty. I know you didn't have to answer that, and you did. God love you. Good Lord. That was just, the correct response was laughing and saying, shut up, Fallout. Moving on. We have a question from, never heard of this person before, DMG04. Kind of a dumb name.
Dark Magician Girl.
Yeah, Dark Magician Girl 04, yeah.
Shout out to Dylan. What is currently the best craftable weapon and why?
That's a great question.
That's a really good question, actually.
I really like that one.
Yeah, we probably could have spent about 15 to 20 minutes talking about that.
Yeah.
If you're a PvE player, probably the Palmyra rocket launcher, because that is really cracked for that auto-loading big boom damage.
Yeah, it
so
lets
nice
you
to
hit
have
that
that.
damage window easier. Or
Yeah,
actually, it makes
yeah.
it possible to hit an extra damage window.
Yeah, Palmyra would be my PvE answer, but PvP is open to a lot more.
I'm so
I
glad there's that rocket just so that there's a deterministic like end game quality rocket after like I never did the whole royal entry grind because I just didn't care enough for it. But it's so nice to just have like I want more things like that where it's just really good that you can just craft and just have it.
Oh, high key. If there was like a hypothetical leaderboard, someone might pull it off with the royal entry because of the volatile rounds stacking with that void. It just like ever so slightly can sweep that extra DPS with certain team compositions, which is really cool. I wish there were more places that mattered.
I think I'm gonna have to, even though I'm sure there's already like 10 videos out there already. I might have to make a video on the peace of mind, because that's a really fun weapon, and I'll actually check. I might be wrong, but I think last time I checked, yeah, the pulse rifle, it was actually, don't want to say it before I check. Trialsreport.com. Yeah, Peace of Mind was the #1 most used weapon in Trials this past weekend across every platform. Yeah, it is quite good, and it has a lot of good options. Last time I checked. Any of you guys use that gun?
I haven't used it, but I've been deleted by it because I think it has focus fury, right?
Yeah, I can't get it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So occasionally I'll just get deleted. I'm like, what just happened?
Cool Guy had a good clip with that with overflow
He
focus
did.
fury where you can slide because the thing is focus fury, if your base magazine is small and then you get overflow, it doesn't extend it. So it's pretty easy to get to that window to proc it and then you just melt people. That's pretty cool.
And the damage buff lasts for a while, I feel like.
It's pretty long, yeah.
It's like 10 seconds or something like that.
Yeah. I'm just still waiting for a 540 pulse that can get kill clip. Or like what's
Claws of the Wolf.
Oh,
Yeah.
my favorite pulse of all time in D2.
Claws
I love that thing.
of the Wolf.
Yeah.
For me, I'm not sure. Like what I would consider the best. I don't know. I was talking about this in my chat. Like I'm not a 540 pulse person. I don't see the hype behind the Peace of Mind, but apparently it's really good. So I guess I'm inclined to pick that as a top option. The sniper, I think I forget what it's called.
Father Sins.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, that one too. Actually, I was gonna say the similar aesthetic one. I forget what it's called. Same activity.
The
yeah.
Stasis
The Cabal, the Cabal
Stasis
sniper.
Yeah, the Cabal sniper.
Tiny little reticle.
Yeah,
I like that one a lot.
I can't do it.
I like Father Sins a lot. Those are like top contenders for the best. The Raid Fusion I think is insane for both PvP and PvE.
The Raid Fusion wins just because it's the only one. But I'm gonna pretend that one doesn't exist when I give you my answer.
Do you want to hear something ironic? The name of the sniper that Drew couldn't think of is called Thoughtless.
Yep.
Maidenless.
And then my personal favorite though, maybe not the best, but is the Syncopation. Less flinch.
Oh, really? That's your favorite right now?
Grip. Yeah, because it kind of mirrors the Battler and the kinetic slot. Different archetype, slightly different, but not too different. Enhanced hipfire. It's got Frenzy, which pushes it to a 2 burst and doesn't require a kill, and it gets less flinch because of the Serial Reload perk. So I love it.
That is a great origin trait.
Yeah.
I'm not usually a fan of the 390 pulse rifles, but the synergy origin trait would be enough for me to slap that on.
I'm not a big fusion user most of the time, but I will say Likely Suspect is craftable, and that thing is
I think it's really
insane for 6v6 is with Firmly Planted and Successful Warm Up. Like when I first used that combo, I was floored. Like it was like using a shotgun that's a fusion rifle. I mean, you can shoot it so fast with that combo, and with Firmly Planted, even after the nerf, it's still crazy good. So I think that's, for me, that would be up there. I also agree the Stasis or the Stasis fusion rifle from the raid. That's very, very, very good.
The Deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used that with Fighting Lion. It was hilarious.
If you follow True Vanguard, he's been clapping people with the Insidious.
He put some clips on Twitter. That thing looks like a laser.
The way he has it built, it is absolutely a laser. I didn't run into that. Again, we always have to remember that there are differences in minor differences in Sandbox between like PC and console, like in terms of like what you'll frequently run into. I feel like I would not want to run into True Vanguard on PS5 if he's rocking the Insidious.
Same. Yeah, I remember back on Stadia, we used to run into only fusion rifles. Like that was the only place they existed.
All the time. Yeah.
My answer is the Roggenhild shotgun, however you pronounce it. And it's because of enhanced 1-2 punch. Like, think of the definition of a special weapon. I know the water gets muddy because everyone uses it as a primary. Most fusion rifles, sniper rifles, etc. It's just a primary. Whereas this shotgun becomes my anti-renewal grass, my anti-bubble. At least with 1-2 punch, there's a chance. And for me, that's good enough to be my best.
When we eventually get Arc 3.0, that is going to be at the top of my list, mainly due to elemental capacitor. It's just the insane handling you'll probably get by just playing an Arc 3.0 class with that shotgun. Like, it's really exciting to think about.
Yeah.
Any other weapons? Those are all really good answers, though.
The GL from the raid, I think, for PvE players can be very good, right? With the the combination things explode. I'm blanking on
And on the flip side, if Cool Guy was here, he would say the line launcher from the wave launcher from Psyops, the solar one, disruption break.
He loves that. The explosive personality, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he loves that grenade launcher. I just feel like if you're going to use that, just use Dead Messenger. But then again, you could pair it with something like Thorn or Ace or whatever. So
shout out to the bow under your skin. I go
Didn't
for
Kujay
hipfire.
have a really cool role on that.
I'm sure there's a lot of cool ways you can build it. I'm going for Hush at Home. I'm going to put the Gambit memento and everything on it. So hipfire opening shot.
I think that might actually be what he had. Or did he have hipfire?
Successful warm up?
Yeah, it might be that. It might be warm up hipfire. And I think he was just like firing it faster and faster from the hip, like some.
If I'm using a bow, I'm usually like swapping to a cleanup weapon of some sort. So I don't want successful warm up because I'm going to be using like Age Receptor to clean it up.
I think that's fair. Yeah. Shout out to Time. Crazy motherfucker. Good question from Dylan. Thank you. We appreciate that. Here's one from a guy I've never heard of before. Gleaux. Not sure how to pronounce that. Gleaux. Never heard of this guy. If PattyCakes and PattyCakes had a bake-off, who would win?
Like this question.
What are we baking?
Yeah, I guess that's the question.
What are you baking? Drew, impartial third party, what are they baking?
Has to be cakes, right?
I guess that has, yeah.
Right?
Sure. That would make sense.
It's got to be like, isn't that like just, if I said cookies, that would be like kind of off, you know? It'd be a little odd.
Like does a pancake count as a cake? Because I feel like
it does.
Pretty decent.
Yeah, it's got it, right?
Sure, why not?
If it's a traditional cake, I'd have to do some YouTubing because I don't know how to make one of those. But
the real question is like, Cool Guy would beat us all at group.
My God, dude, I called him.
A gift.
I called Cool Guy the other night at like, it must have been like 9:30 my time or whatever. Sometime where it's like, okay, he's definitely not going to be grilling because it's like really late, right? So I call him. He's like, hey, just hold on 1 second. I'm going into the store. I'm like gonna go buy like a bunch of like bratwurst or whatever. I was like, are you okay? You have a problem. Every time I talk to you, you're grilling meat every time, or you're preparing for it.
Like next time,
now that you think about it, I thought about it. I'm like, right, he does do that a lot, doesn't he?
You're gonna hear him on the voice call, just the sizzling in the background.
Here's a question from Mike Foster. Any bad weapon perks that you think need a rework?
Think about that one.
Oh, you just made me think of armor I didn't mention earlier in the episode. Okay, this was like on the overall meta stuff. I talked about 1-2 punch because there's a chance. There's another exotic that does it. It's Peregrine Greaves. It's like they throw a bubble or renewal grasp and you hit them with it and it one hits. But that's assuming it works. It is bugged to not work in the air sometimes, even though you do time it correctly. But the easier one on the surface is that the Peregrine perk activates later than Shoulder Charge does. But that's not what I'm doing wrong. I'm doing everything right. I'm waiting. I'm getting very much in the air. And the problem with being in the air is it makes the Shoulder Charge short stop sometimes. But even if it does connect, there's a chance that the perk just does not work. And I'll watch the footage back and the numbers just don't add up. So I am so sad that I finally thought of something like, all right, I can beat the Renewal grasp, and you can't. The game says no.
I was getting owned by some Titan legend out there with Peregrine and my freelance games, actually. Like, because I'm so used to the shoulder charge not killing me, and so I was like just ready to take the hit most of the time and just get one shot. I was like, wait, that doesn't kill anymore. Inspected.
I know we
after,
haven't
like, hit it
seen
twice.
we haven't seen Arc in a hot minute, but if you get hit by that top tree striker, it sends your ass to Skyrim. Like,
So this is not a perk that's bad, but
Sure.
on glaives, I think that I'm waiting to see someone make really good use of unstoppable force on a glaive in a build. Like, I think that thing is so interesting because a normal glaive hits like 131, I think, for the charge attack, and then unstoppable, I believe, is like 170. So any little bit of damage boost will make that a one shot. So you could be charging the shield or holding the shield, and then you shoot the unstoppable shot and one shot someone. I haven't seen anyone do anything interesting with it yet, but I feel like that could be like a cool way to use a glaive.
It could be. I feel like glaives just, I don't know, it just could be me. I just feel like such a cool thing that was introduced into the game, and then like the more I played, in both PvE and PvP, I'm like, kind of don't care anymore. Like they're very difficult to. You ever actually tried to shoot somebody with them in PvP?
I've not used them very much in PvP. I do like them in PvE for that one Invis Hunter build. That's a lot of fun. But
That was fun.
PvP, I haven't done a whole lot with them.
It's kind of, to me, like it just feels like a meme, but I mean, who knows? It could have more potential moving forward, but
there's a bug with the glaives where you can cancel the hunter dodge to launch yourself.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
And before anybody says anything, we're calling it the glaive dash. I don't care.
Oh man, that's good. I would probably say Zen Moment, because I feel like that's a perk that's just been kind of like,
what does it do?
Yeah, what does it do? It increases stability, except not really. Kind of. I don't even know what I would do.
I'll
with
pick
that.
one that tilts me, which shoot to loot.
Mm.
It should work. It works most of the time, but when it doesn't work and you're shooting an ammo piece for the whole magazine, oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I had that not work on me yesterday, but I was testing, you guys, I think, Yerda, and we were testing slug shotgun range. And I literally put a shoot to loot weapon on so I could just keep shooting the ground and pick up the special ammo so I didn't have to move my spot since we'd perfectly positioned for range testing. And it didn't work. It was bugged.
My
God. It doesn't work. Dude, I do so many cool clips where I like pop somebody in the face and shoot the ammo out of the air, and I'll watch it back. Like, I know I was on point. I see the bullet like fucking ricochet off the special ammo sometimes and not give me the green.
Yeah.
That was a goddamn shame. Drew, any bad perks you wanna change a little bit?
I don't know. There's nothing that immediately comes to mind. I was gonna say like Adagio kind of like comes to mind, but I'm like, yeah, that totally depends on like the weapon and the archetype. So it's like, don't think that's fair. I don't know. Nothing immediately comes to mind.
I like the idea of bait and switch a lot, but I feel like it's not that useful in most situations. Like, because again, coming from like some MMO gameplay where you're like constantly doing this rotation where you're doing like something and then you switch and you're doing another thing. I like that idea, but bait and switch, since it requires you to hit with your heavy weapon, like I feel like it should be better for some, like I'm imagining a rotation where you hit like, maybe you hit like a Wither Horde shot and then an SMG shot, and then you have it on like your linear fusion or something. And like that would be awesome damage if you can keep up that rotation perfectly. But I feel like it's not really worth doing that switch a lot of times. Like it's not enough damage, maybe. I haven't tested it in detail. I like the idea of it a lot, where you have to use all three of your weapons frequently.
It's not a bad idea.
I think recombination also is bugged for frame rate or something. Not sure if that was fixed. I'll just leave it at that.
Good answer so far. Here's a question that, oh man, I really wish maybe we could have a extended talk next time with Cool Guy, because I feel like he just put a video out on YouTube about this. But question from Griffin01: how do we save 180 RPM hand cannons?
Shout out to Cool Guy. Watch the video.
Definitely watch Cool Guy.
It was a really good rant.
Here's an interesting question: should we save 180 RPM hand cannons? They're fun. I don't really know what the answer would be to that. It's you guys actually, does anyone here actually non-ironically use a 180 RPM hand cannon? No.
Nope. No, right?
Outside of the not forgotten meta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't use them as often anymore because I mean I have my one weapon that I stick to now. But Survivor's Epitaph I really like. I enjoy the archetype still a lot, but yeah, no doubt they're definitely behind. I mean the other ones are definitely not as good. I'm not going to pretend like they're the best.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would do to change them. I think my suggestion a long time ago was like a slight RPM boost.
That's what I'd like to see too.
Yeah, like a slight boost to RPM. I think another thing that you could do is perhaps, I don't know if this would solve anything, but lower the impact that resilience has on it. So maybe just boost the damage numbers a slight bit so that you're not, because I think it's like, what is it? 5 resilience turns into a 3-head 1 body, which is just, definitely working towards that archetype, or sorry, against that archetype. So I don't know, something small like that maybe could be enough, and a slight damage boost would make it so that even one stack of Rampage, like on Posterity, would start 3-tapping more resilience levels, and it kind of plays into that a little bit better as well. I don't know. Either one of those sounds like it to me. I don't think that's going to all of a sudden make it the meta, but I don't think that should be the goal either.
I value inner accuracy so much that if these are the only way to get it, I'm still using them, even at 1 second TTK. Having a different angle of engagement is just so important.
I think the only time I ran into a guy somewhat recently who was actually making an impact with a 180 RPM hand cannon. He was using the what is it called? The 7th Seraph hand cannon, that Warmind one or whatever. And it had max range, and it also had timed payload on it. I think it had like timed payload firmly planted or whatever. So we would get into these duels, and the only reason that every now and then he would kill me with one is like the insane extra consistency. Yeah, it was literally the flinch factor with timed payload. It was like, because you already get flinched a fair amount with those hand cannons, but like, I was just like, holy crap, like he was just lighting up my screen. But I think that was the only time I can actually remember someone actually using one and leaving an impression on me. I don't know what I would do to them. They just don't put enough. They just don't put out enough damage, I guess, for me to feel satisfied with wielding one.
Yeah, I just feel like there's almost no incentive to use one. I agree with Drew. I feel like a slight RPM increase to make it almost kind of like that feeling of like how Not Forgotten, you felt like you could slow it down, but if you wanted to shoot as fast as possible, you could really get rewarded for doing so. And I like that idea. So I'd like to see just a slight boost, because I feel like, especially, I mean, I play mouse and keyboard almost exclusively, and it's just harder to use them because they kick up in your face the way the recoil works. Like, it kind of blocks a lot of your screen. And they just, it's like, I would use them more if I felt like there was any incentive to do so. But I mean, I feel like I can get the same result with a 140 hand cannon by hitting 3 headshots and get a faster time to kill. And it's like, I just don't really see a big reason to use them.
Yeah, especially because like, I mean, K gets that inherent accuracy. Like, Kim makes the argument, which is a good one, where it's like, hey, you want inner accuracy, and that's that accuracy is a big selling point of the 180s, or should be at least. And for a controller, that's why I use it, because I personally don't find that level of consistency with 140s, when I'm in the air. But I think you're totally right on MK. It's like it can be obstructive. Is that the word of the recoil? And like the in air, it's like slap on an Necros grip, and that's probably good enough. Yeah. And you're not sacrificing lethality.
Is 120 the same time to kill as a 180?
They're both 1 second, I think, right?
Yeah, then why would you ever use a 180? Just more damage from a 120. Still 2 head, 1 body.
Yeah.
I
You
think
just
the
skip
only
1 bullet.
potentially
Controller,
against
that's the only
renewal
reason, I
grasps,
think.
right? Like they do, I think they probably
Oh.
do higher DPS. I don't know off the top of my head, but I imagine their actual DPS is probably faster because of the rate of fire. So maybe they'd be better against renewal grasps.
That's a
but
good point.
Only
That's
thing
like
I can
such an
think
edge
of,
case.
if someone really wants to stretch, and I'm talking a big stretch, it's like, they'll make it so that a warlock standing in a healing rift won't heal as much. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I really just see that as a controller weapon, and that's like
They
not a
kinda
good
are,
argument either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the best controller players I know though still end up using a lot of like the 120s and 140s more. Like I
Yeah.
have a friend Chad,
Sure,
I
of
think
course,
I know him. He's like always uses 120s still. And it just I find that interesting that if it's supposed to be like a really good weapon for controllers, like why don't see it more often? And maybe it's also more of a console thing versus PC thing. I'm not really sure, but
I definitely notice them on console when I play.
yeah.
I'm thinking of the Mr. Incredible meme where it's like they start off on the 180 and then like demonic Mr. Incredible is when they get to the last word on controller.
I think what it
funny.
comes down to as well is that it's like it's DPS, right? It's the damage per shot. Like playing cover is just so important, and the fact of the matter is that 180 hand cannons cannot play cover as well. They do an okay job at it. It's still a hand cannon, but like, I mean, it's not a 120, right? Or it's you
Right.
know
120, you peek out, and especially if you're team shooting with a friend, you hit one shot with a 120. It's like that's crazy burst damage, and now it just makes the duel for the other guy in your team that much easier, even if they're using like a 140 or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like they're even worse at that than certain pulse rifles, like the high impact pulses, for example. I think are better at peak shotting than 180 hand cannons. It's kind of funny.
Oh yeah, like the messenger is awesome. Like you poke out, you just hit him like a truck.
Yep.
Like it's really satisfying. Man, we have a lot of other. We got to a good amount of questions. There's others here that would be literally their own episode. Question from Castle: if you like, don't answer this, but if you could fix any 3 things in the game, what would they be? Question from Apathy: since it was making the rounds again the other day, thoughts on connection-based matchmaking versus skill-based matchmaking? It's literally like these question topics are like they're great, but they would be entire episode topics. Let's end on an easy one, or maybe a shortish one. From Jake Nilla on Twitter: what do you guys think was more oppressive when introduced, Stasis or Void 3.0? I would be shocked if we disagreed on this. I feel like
Stasis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even think
Without a
it's close,
doubt.
to be honest. It's like I'll play Void 3.0 for the rest of my Destiny career before I go back to the Stasis at launch.
Yeah, I feel
You
like
could
Void
argue
3.0
got weaker than 2.0. You could argue that. But Stasis, no, that was a whole new level of power.
Yeah, it was like Void 3.0 when it came out, it was like, wow, we can do all this. That's a lot of stuff we can do. That's really cool. Like, oh wow, like, well, this is kind of strong. That's kind of strong. Like, I wonder how, like, the question about Void 3.0 was like, wow, I wonder how the inevitable balance is going to be. But like, there's a lot of stuff we can do right now. And like, when Stasis came out, MTash was like, I'm leaving the game forever for an anime game.
I have clips of on Endless Veil on the Hunter throwing 2 shurikens down the middle and getting a triple kill on Trials. Just like, how is that even a thing?
My God.
I have a compilation of shadow dives that I've just never released, and there's some like terrible things in there.
Oh my God, you got to make that
so bad.
You got to make that like a sub
That
goal
is so
and then put it out on
crazy.
YouTube. Like, this is the thing that happened, or like whatever.
Looking back at it, every part of the Stasis kit had its point at the meta. Every single little aspect of it.
The Warlocks came out, I think, right out the gate, super hot with like just the insane range of the melee. All you could do is just throw the snowball somewhere very like vaguely near the other guy, and it was like, okay, cool. And now you're frozen for like half your life. Get wrecked.
I hate that I figured out Shadebinder like an optimal way to play it, and then it got nerfed the week after. I didn't get to abuse that power.
Yeah. I think it's funny how the grenades cycled through so much. Like the was the cold snaps were
Yeah.
like the very first meta.
Very
Like everyone
first.
was abusing those, and then dust fields, and then shadow, and then glaciers, and then it's like it keeps rotating through these different.
They
different
back
all
at
had their
dust
time in the
fields.
sun. Oh god, that's some funny stuff. Anyway, wow, this is kind of an anomaly. We should have Patty on the show more often because we started on time, the live show, and we almost hit like a perfect hour and a half. That's kind of impressive. Yeah, raising the bar there. But anyway, Patty, thanks for being the second non-Bungie guest we've ever had on the show.
Wow.
We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun. Anytime.
Of course. We're going to go ahead and do that thing that we do where we go around the table and we'll let you know where you can find us when we're not here on the show. Starting with our guest, Patty, where can the people at home again find you?
Sure. Best thing is probably YouTube, youtube.com/PattyCakes Gaming. Twitch is just /PattyCakes, and on Twitter is PattyCakesGG.
What are the kinds of things we expect from your channel though? Like if
There
I
you
was
go,
to click
yeah.
on it.
Yeah, so I have I'm probably best known, I guess, for tier lists. I've made a lot of tier lists. People beg me to keep creating them. So I rank a lot of different things in PvP, like hand cannons, pulse rifles, subclasses, pretty much anything you could rank has been ranked at some
I
point.
like
probably.
your tier list.
Aren't
They get me
those
through a
an
lot of house
absolute-
tours.
Yeah,
Aren't those
they're
an absolute bitch to put together?
It's so much work. I don't think
Yeah.
many people realize how much work goes into
Yeah,
those, but
it's a lot of work.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think they're cool because even like going back to some of the old ones, it's like a historical like view of what the game was like at different eras, which is kind of fun to like look back at.
Or
That's
what
kinda
we
cool.
valued at the time. Like sometimes
exactly.
the Bungie dev will say something, they're like, this is how shotguns work. And we're like, well, what?
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Do you
Yeah.
also get moments on Twitter for like a week after you put up a new video? It's like,
Oh,
I
it's-
can't believe that you ranked this gun in this tier. And
endless.
it's just nonstop arguing,
I've learned
bro.
so much about just how people think about different issues, and it's a good lesson in realizing it's literally impossible to make everyone happy.
It's literally impossible.
The opinions are so divergent too. It's not like everyone says the same thing. It's like, I'll put something in like B tier and someone says it's like, oh, I can't believe it's not S tier, and then someone else is like B tier, that's like way too high.
So
It should be-
high, yeah.
it's really funny.
It's literally every time.
Yeah, they're fun to make though.
Do you still have that that other channel? Was it for
I
Battlefield
have
or
a Battlefield channel. I was actually so excited for it, and then the game, I don't know if you followed it.
Oh, I've been
It flopped
following
pretty
it, Patty.
hard. So I'm planning to actually start doing some more variety there. I think I might do some like Halo, Apex, Call
Hey,
of Duty.
all
It's
right.
kind of like all different FPS games there. So if you want to check that one out, it's youtube.com/PattyCakesGG, I think is the URL. But
Interesting.
ironically, my most views of any video I've ever made is that channel, which is my Battlefield tier list. So
yeah.
that one's still popping up every day. So
Good for you, man.
yeah, that's fun.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Cammy, where can the people at home find you?
youtube.com/PattyCakes Gaming. I'll go with that one.
Lovely. And Drew, where can the people find you?
Twitch.tv/Drewskis.
Cool. And let's plug Cool Guy, even though he's not here. YouTube.com. Is it Cool Guy or Cool Guy Games? It's Cool Guy, right?
Might be Cool Guy Game. I'm gonna
Let's just
check
find
this
out. I'm
right
gonna go
now.
to youtube.com/Cool
Okay,
Guy.
let me go type in grilling.
Okay, it is definitely not Cool Guy.
Cool Guy Grills.
I don't know what I'm looking at right here.
Cool Guy Grills.
It's Cool Guy Games.
Cool Guy Games.
youtube.com/c/Cool Guy Games.
Although, check out youtube.com/Cool Guy. I don't know what I'm looking at here, but this guy's got 3,000 subs. I'm gonna check out your channel, Mr. OG Cool Guy.
Does look pretty cool.
But yeah, check out Cool Guy Games. And my name is Fallout. You can find me at youtube.com/FalloutPlays and twitch.tv/FalloutPlays. We appreciate you very much for catching the live show, or if you're listening wherever you are, we appreciate you. Thank you very much for watching and or listening, and we will catch you next time. Stay safe.